You may have seen the title of this video and think I'm some Valve fanboy who's going to explain how the Steam Deck will single-handedly kill the Switch or the PlayStation. Well, no, at least for the time being, that is actually impossible. Valve simply doesn't have the ability to manufacture enough Steam Decks to kill any traditional console, no matter how high the demand for them are. Valve would have to produce tens of millions of these a year for that to happen. Valve is currently producing them in the range of a few 100,000 in a year, meaning they would need to increase production by a factor of 100 to even stand a chance. However, I still stand by my belief that the Steam Deck is part of what may be the end of traditional consoles as we know it. Let me explain. There's no secret that over the years, consoles have slowly become more and more like PCs. The day where you just put a disc into your brand new system and play is long gone. Constant updates and account sign-ins have made that a thing of the past. On top of that, consoles now come with complex operating systems and a multitude of non-gaming applications, even web browsers. So given how much the line has blurred, what makes, say, the PS5 a gaming console and the Steam Deck a PC? Well, openness. Despite its form factor, you can easily install whatever piece of software you want onto it, even a different operating system or a competing store. Considering Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft basically have a monopoly, and deciding what software you can or can't install, plus requiring you to pay for that software, means that you won't ever see someone like Sony or Nintendo make something like the Steam Deck. Microsoft is a different story, but we will get into that later. For people who are less educated on tech, you might not understand why so many people are freaking out about the Steam Deck. What makes it different from your average gaming laptop, the failed Steam machines from a few years ago, or even the Chinese tablet gaming devices that were released last year? Why is the Steam Deck suddenly a threat when all those weren't? Well, for a few reasons, but the biggest one being that the Steam Deck is cheap, extremely cheap. Unlike other hardware manufacturers that sell their products at a premium to gain a profit, Valve is certainly losing money on the Steam Deck. You can't find a portable gaming device with the same performance-to-price ratio the Steam Deck is boasting. Not for $650, the price of their most expensive device, and definitely not for $400, their cheapest model. The reason PC gaming has always been more expensive than console gaming, at least for the initial investment, was due to this price difference. However, thanks to Valve being willing to take a loss on these things, assuming they would make the money back through Steam game purchases, we have a device that for $400 is only $100 more than the base Switch, yet is around 5 times more powerful and has twice as much memory. I don't think there has ever been a case where a pre-built computer was able to beat a popular console like this in the realm of price to performance. And sure, $400 puts the Steam Deck in the same price point as the PS5, which it definitely isn't as powerful as, but thanks to its portability and low resolution, it kind of doesn't have to be. In the past, previous generations simply couldn't run the games from contemporary generations. It wasn't just a graphical thing. Map designs, physics, AI, number of enemies on screen, and other fancy additions meant that oftentimes newer generations showed us things that simply couldn't be possible before. But that isn't really true for the current generation. Most of the graphical gains of this gen came from resolution and optional features like ray tracing. Maybe it's just me, but I literally can't tell the difference between Spider-Man PS4 and Spider-Man on PS5. I have spent minutes just looking at them side by side and can't see a noticeable difference. What this means is that no, Steam Deck games aren't going to look nearly as good as next-gen console games, but thanks to portable chips catching up in price and performance to non-portable hardware over the last few years, the Steam Deck should be able to play every game that releases this generation, even if at low settings, and at a far lower resolution. This is a big deal because nearly all PS5 games and all Xbox Series S and X games are cross-platform on PC. This is something that was simply not possible until very recently. I love my Switch, but it was a miracle they got Doom Eternal running on it. It is sadly going to miss out on a lot of cross-gen PS5 to Xbox multiplats, but not the Steam Deck. Okay, so far it sounds like I have been praising the Steam Deck. After all, I never held one, and so for all we know it could have major hardware issues. It might have its own form of Joy-Con drift, or maybe its memory limitations become a deal breaker. And besides, like I said, Valve can't make enough Steam Decks to compete with consoles anyway, so why does it matter? Well, the thing is, I don't think the first wave of Steam Decks will kill consoles. However, I do think something like the Steam Deck eventually might. Valve opened the floodgate. Within only an hour, the Steam Deck received around 150,000 pre-orders. Probably more Steam Decks were pre-ordered in a day than the number Valve can produce in a year. Most consoles can't get this many pre-orders in only an hour. With Steam Deck now setting a new price point for these types of devices, every other company in the portable gaming space will have to compete to stay relevant. I don't think most companies can, however. Like I said, Valve is selling these at a loss. Most other companies have no incentive to do so, since their profits would have to come from hardware sales. However, there are a few companies that I can see being able to join in. Microsoft is probably scared of the Steam Deck, actually. Microsoft makes most of its money from Windows, and as history has shown, their portable hardware devices have never really done very well. The Steam Deck and Valve's pushes into Linux probably scares Microsoft because the last thing they want is an open and free alternative to Windows to gain popularity. This makes me wonder if Microsoft will support the Steam Deck. Microsoft wants to put their Game Pass on every device possible, and Game Pass portably would do wonders for the service. Yes, Microsoft is allowing for cloud streaming, but let's be honest, the vast majority of people can't use their phone's 5G for something like that. Besides the immense lag, they would run out of data within minutes. True next-gen levels of gaming on the go for the time being require onboard hardware. The most logical thing for Microsoft to do is compete with the Steam Deck, which ironically is something Valve themselves said they would want. They are open that they want to encourage other companies to make their own versions, because hey, if mobile PC gaming grows, as the #1 PC game distributor, they can only grow from this. It doesn't matter to them who is making the Steam Deck-like devices. Most people don't know this, but Gabe did something similar with VR. While Gabe and Valve never bought Oculus, Gabe personally funded the Kickstarter for the original Oculus with a big donation. He also worked with Oculus devs in the early days and helped push agnostic research that would help grow VR in general. If it weren't for Gabe, Oculus may have never been bought by Facebook to begin with, meaning Gabe literally funded his biggest rival in the VR space and did so because the growth of VR helps Steam either way. The same logic applies to portable gaming devices. Microsoft having a mobile version of Windows makes sense for a device like this. In fact, I'm semi-surprised the Steam Deck isn't running a free stripped-down version of Windows on it. Microsoft makes its money from Windows, but the vast majority of that money comes from business licenses, or people buying Microsoft software for Windows. This is why pirating Windows has actually been so extremely easy the last few years, because they don't really lose money as long as you still need a business license to use it for work. By putting a mobile-friendly version of Windows, either on the Steam Deck itself or on a Steam Deck competitor, they can push Windows into new spaces and bring Game Pass along with it. Everything I just said sounds like conjecture, and it kind of is, but while writing this script I found out that the AMD chipset that is in the Steam Deck was rumored to have been originally designed specifically for a Microsoft portable Game Pass-enabled device, which Microsoft canceled sometime in 2020. If that is true, they are almost certainly trying to bring that project back up, given the huge reception of the Steam Deck. I recently talked about how PC gaming has shown explosive growth in places like Japan, eating the market share that Sony once had in the area. But I also stated how PC gaming faces major issues in Japan, ranging from portability to price. Well, the Steam Deck actually helps solve many of those issues. While the Steam Deck isn't available to purchase in Japan as of now, the response online for it in Asia has been huge. And I am certain that something like this would really help the already growing PC market in Japan. However, I think the country you will see this really explode in is China, who have already produced many Steam Deck-like devices, though for far greater prices. Yeah, the Steam Deck kind of makes the recently released GPD3 obsolete, but the fact that these things already existed in China really shows how well something like the Steam Deck will do there. The two most popular forms of gaming in China are mobile gaming and PC gaming. These devices combine them together. While I said I think Microsoft will make a device like this, I don't think Sony or Nintendo will. It's no secret that Microsoft has been slowly shifting their gaming focus away from the Xbox. If Microsoft is smart, they will use the power of the Xbox brand with their Steam Deck-like device. After all, the Xbox Series S, while not portable, is a powerful next-gen ready device made for scalable gaming in a small form factor. Unlike Valve, who is new to the hardware space, Microsoft being a literal trillion-dollar company and having sway in the manufacturing industry could pump their version of these by the tens of millions if they really wanted to. Even with our current chip drought, they have shown that they can at least get over 5 million Xbox Series S and X's made. It is ironic, but the company that famously never made a handheld console in 10 years might dominate the handheld market if they play their cards right. If not Microsoft, maybe traditional phone companies might jump into the space. Sure, they don't know anything about video games, but they do know how to sell cheap and subsidized portable devices. These devices are tablets after all. Maybe they can convince normal people to pay them every month for a data plan or something. Not sure. Sony and Nintendo, though, don't have any incentive to go this route. Nintendo sells their consoles at a profit, not a loss, and Sony makes the majority of its money on online subscriptions and revenue from third-party companies who want to sell their games on the PlayStation. Both forms of revenue would be lost by having a more open platform. One symptom of the Steam Deck I could see, ironically, is causing Sony to port less games to PC. Sony has been recently porting their PlayStation games to Steam because they don't see PC gaming as competing with the console space. The Steam Deck and systems like it combine all of the advantages of a console, cheap price, easy to use, and small form factor, with all the advantages of a PC, being openness. If Sony sees this as a threat, they will likely try to slow down its growth any way they can. Though, despite the many comparisons people have made towards the Switch, I don't think Nintendo should be too scared of the Steam Deck in the immediate future. While a huge share of people buy the Switch thanks to its form factor, I mean, after all, the Wii U is basically the Switch, just less portable, and see how well that did, Nintendo can still rely on its exclusives and honestly cult-like fanbase to keep Nintendo consoles going for a few more years. Same with Sony, assuming they keep their exclusives on their PlayStation. In the immediate future, I expect gaming laptops to see a big loss in sales. Companies like Dell and their Alienware subdivision have been selling gaming laptops at a premium for years. But let's be honest, they have always been overpriced, and gaming laptops don't actually have the best form factor for gaming. Having a laptop on, well, your lap isn't very comfortable when it's burning a hole in your leg trying to run a modern game. The Steam Deck is objectively a better gaming device for the price if your main goal of a gaming laptop is gaming on the go rather than doing work. In the long term, I'm curious to see how console gaming from Sony and Nintendo adapt to the competition the Steam Deck and similar products make for them. In the short term, they will be fine, but as production of similar products ramps up and as portable hardware continues to catch up, I'm not sure what they can do. Sony can make a new PlayStation Portable model, sure, but that won't have the open features, something like the Steam Deck has. Same for the Switch. Consumers will look at a new PSP or Switch and see that their game and hardware prices are inexcusable compared to what they can get from a third-party handheld PC. I mean, remember how much Sony was charging for hard drive space for the Vita? I won't say both will go bankrupt because these are multi-billion-dollar companies. They will find some way to adapt, and I probably won't be able to predict exactly how that is, which makes me very curious. But whatever that may be, I don't think it will involve simply pushing a traditional console like we have seen for the last few decades. The biggest argument for why people get a console, its simplicity, simply doesn't work anymore, and so consoles have been required to rely on their price and first-party exclusives more and more, since third parties continue to try to put their games on as many devices as possible. I know console fanboys exist, and can't imagine not buying a new PlayStation or Nintendo-branded box, but the reality is that most people don't care which company produces the box that their games happen to play on. In conclusion, if Sony and Nintendo want to retain their gaming dominance into the next decade, they will have to adapt. I'm not exactly sure how, but they will have to. That is the threat these companies face now, and it all starts thanks to a tablet created by an ex-Microsoft employee who couldn't even count to 3. See ya.